Okay, let's just jump right in. It is February 2026.
It is.
And if you've been paying even a little bit of attention to the science news this past week, you've probably felt it.
Not quite
This massive disturbance in the force. Or, maybe more accurately, a huge vibe shift in the world of quantum computing.
It's been a really remarkable week. And that phrase, vibe shift, that's not just you. That's a direct quote from Natalie de Leon, a physicist at Princeton.
Wow, okay. So it's real.
It describes the feeling in the whole field perfectly.
Right. So the source we are diving into today is this big news feature from Nature. It just came out February 4th, 2026. And the headline is pretty bold. Quantum computers will finally be useful.
Right.
What's behind the revolution?
It really is.
Honestly, the difference between what we thought, say, a few years ago and what they're saying now is it's kind of shocking.
It's a huge leap.
Usually with quantum computing, the timeline is so vague, it's always promising, but perpetually, 30 years away.
It has that fusion energy problem. Always 30 years away, no matter when you ask.
Exactly. The technology of the future. Forever. But this article says experts now think we could see useful, fault-tolerant machines within the next 10 years.
By 2035.
I mean, from maybe never to 10 years is a massive jump.
It is. And what's so fascinating is that this isn't just hype. It's not just another press release. This marks a real maturation of the field.
From theory to engineering.
Exactly. We're moving out of the era of theoretical physics
Yeah.
and into engineering reality. We're not asking if anymore. We're arguing about how.
So our mission today is to figure out why. Why this shift? Why right now? We're going to look at these breakthroughs in error correction.
And meet this exclusive club of teams that finally pulled it off.
But to do that, we have to start with the problem itself.
We do. Because to get why this is such a breakthrough, you have to understand why building one of these things is just so incredibly hard.
The bottleneck.
Precisely. The bottleneck.
So let's go back to basics for a sec. A normal computer, like this laptop I'm looking at, has bits.
0 or 1. Simple.
But a quantum computer uses qubits. And the source has this great analogy. It says a qubit is like the quantum spin of an electron, like a magnetic needle.
Right. Think of a light switch. It's either up or down, on or off. If you shake the table, the switch stays where it is. It's robust.
It's stable.
But a qubit is like a compass needle floating in space. It can point north, south, or, and this is a quantum magic, anywhere in between.
And that in between is where all the power comes from.
All those possibilities at once.
But
a compass needle is sensitive.
Incredibly sensitive. And in the quantum world, sensitive means a stray photon hits it or the temperature changes just a tiny bit.
And that needle wobbles. It starts to drift. And if it drifts too much, you've lost your information. That's decoherence.
And the article says the very act of using the computer makes it worse. It talks about gates, which aren't fences.
No, a gate is just an operation. Like telling the chip, okay, rotate that spin 90 degrees.
Simple enough.
Except it's not. The pulse you send to do that rotation, it's never perfect. It might be 90.1 degrees or 89.9.
So every single calculation introduces a tiny error.
A tiny error.
Yeah.
They compound, and then you throw entanglement into the mix.
Ah, yes, the spooky action at a distance, the sci-fi favorite.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
It's what lets you link qubits together
Yeah.
and get that exponential boost in power. But it's a double-edged sword.
Because it's fragile.
Incredibly fragile. You mess up one part of that entangled web, and the corruption spreads through the whole thing instantly. Your whole calculation just collapses.
And the final insult is that you can't even check your work as you go.
Right. Measurement destruction. The moment you look at the system to see what state it's in, you destroy the quantumness of it. It just snaps to a regular digital answer.
So you can't just peek halfway through to see if you've made a mistake.
You can't.
Yeah.
So for decades, the problem was this race against time. Can you finish your calculation before the errors pile up and turn your answer into complete noise?
And the errors were winning.
The errors were always winning. That was the wall.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This Nature article says we just smashed right through that wall.
We did. Enter quantum error correction.
This is the big breakthrough.
It is. The idea itself isn't new. It's been a theory for a while.
Yeah.
The concept is, instead of putting your information on one single fragile qubit,
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
exactly that, you create redundancy. You spread one unit of information, what we call a logical qubit, across many physical qubits.
So if one of them messes up, the others can correct for it?
That's the idea. If you have one egg and you drop it, breakfast is ruined. If you have a carton of 12 and one breaks, you're still fine.
Okay, but how do you know an egg broke if you can't look inside the carton? We just said measuring destroys the data.
This is the really clever part. It's called syndrome measurement. You don't measure the qubits themselves, you measure the relationship between them.
The relationship, what does that even mean?
Think of it like a parity check. You just ask a simple question like, are these two neighboring qubits pointing in the same direction? The answer is just yes or no.
And that yes or no tells you if an error happened.
Right, if one of them flipped when it shouldn't have. But it doesn't tell you what the actual information is.
So you're asking, is everything okay, instead of what's the answer?
Precisely. You get to fix the machinery without looking at what the machine is building. You spot the flip, you correct it, and the quantum state stays intact.
That is just incredibly clever. But there has to be a catch. There's always a catch.
The catch is that the correction process itself, the act of checking those relationships and applying a fix, is an operation, a gate.
And all operations introduce errors.
Oh, no. So for a long time, trying to fix the errors actually added more noise than it removed.
It's like trying to clean a window with a dirty rag. You just make a bigger mess.
That's a perfect analogy. But back in the 90s, a mathematician named Dorit Aharonov proved something called the threshold theorem. She showed that mathematically, if you can get the error rate of your operations below a certain threshold,
You can line a window faster than you dirty it.
you can fix errors faster than they appear. And for 30 years, that was just a theory, a promise.
Until now, the article calls it the exclusive club.
Yes.
Over the past year through 2025 and early 2026, 4 separate teams finally prove this works in the real world.
And the list of who's in this club is telling. You've got Google Quantum AI, a team at USTC in China.
Yeah.
You have a company called Quantinuum, and a team from Harvard working with a startup, QuEra.
And they're not all using the same method, are they?
No, and that's what makes this so powerful. It's not a one-off. Google and USTC are using these tiny superconducting loops kept near absolute zero.
Right.
Quantinuum is using trapped ions, charged atoms, held in place by magnetic fields.
And the Harvard and QuEra team.
They're using neutral atoms held in place by optical tweezers.
Optical tweezers, that just sounds like science fiction.
It's real. They are literally focused beams of light that can hold and move individual atoms around. But the point is, despite all the different hardware,
All 4 of them cross that threshold.
they all did it. They all show that as you add more qubits to the system, the errors actually go down. And for physicists, that was the watershed moment. That proved fault-tolerant quantum computing is actually viable.
So we know we can do it. The proof of concept is there. We have the clean rag.
We do.
But now we get to the next phase of the problem, because fixing the errors is expensive.
Extremely expensive. Welcome to the efficiency wars.
The article talks about this ratio. To make one single, perfect, logical qubit, you need a ton of physical qubits to back it up.
Yeah, the old estimate was something like 1,000 to 1,
1,000 physical qubits for one logical qubit.
just to run one reliable bit of information.
And to do the cool stuff, like breaking internet encryption, you'd need thousands of logical qubits, which means
You'd need millions, maybe even billions of physical qubits. And our biggest machines right now have, what, a few thousand?
So the scale of that problem is why people thought this was still 30 years away.
Exactly. The math just didn't look good. But this is where the engineers start getting really, really creative.
Let's talk about Craig Gidney at Google. The article says he used geometric intuition. What is that?
So this is a brilliant bit of software engineering. Gidney looked at the abstract diagrams for these error-correcting codes, how the operations are laid out.
Okay.
And he realized the way they were arranged on the chip was really inefficient.
Hmm.
So he started applying topology, the math of shapes and surfaces.
Like the whole donut and coffee cup thing.
Sort of, yeah. He visualized the whole process as a 3D structure in space-time. And by twisting and braiding the code in a specific geometric pattern, he found a way to correct the same number of errors with vastly fewer resources.
And the result was huge. He showed that to factor those big numbers, you don't need 20 million qubits anymore.
You could do it with 1 million.
He just cut the requirement by 95%.
He did, just by being smarter about the geometry of the software. That's an order of magnitude improvement without even changing the hardware.
That brings the goalposts so much closer. But the hardware folks are also innovating. Let's go back to those optical tweezers at Harvard and QuEra. Mikhail Lukin.
Right. So their approach is really interesting because unlike a superconducting chip where the qubits are printed in place,
They're stuck.
they're stuck. If a qubit on one side of the chip needs to talk to one on the other, it's like passing a note in class. It has to go from person to person.
But the Harvard team can just throw the note across the room.
That's a great way to put it. They can use the lasers to physically drag an atom across the chip, entangle it with a partner far away, and then drag it back.
That extra connectivity must save a lot of overhead.
A huge amount. They think they can get that 1,000-to-1 ratio down to 100-to-1.
Wow.
And if they can do that, and you combine it with Gidney's code, suddenly a million qubit machine isn't a fantasy anymore. It's a roadmap.
But there's a catch with the lasers, isn't there? Something about the 3 nines.
There is always a catch. The optical tweezers are flexible, but they're a little less accurate than the superconducting gates. To make their 100-to-1 plan work, their gate fidelity, how accurate each operation is, has to hit 99.9%.
And where are they now?
Around 99.5%.
That sounds so close. It's a 0.4% difference.
In our world, that's a tiny gap. In quantum mechanics, that gap is a chasm. That 0.4% is the difference between a calculation that works and one that crashes in a millisecond.
So we have better software, more flexible hardware. But there's a third front in this war, and that's just cleaning up the physical mess, the material science.
Yes. The cleaner your physical qubits are to begin with, the less error correction you have to do.
And this brings us back to Natalie DeLeon at Princeton. The article says she's a metrologist.
Metrology is the science of precise measurement. So while everyone else was building bigger, more complex systems, she basically took a microscope and asked, why are these things so noisy in the first place?
She went looking for the source of the dirt.
Exactly. And she found it in the ingredients. The industry standard was using aluminum for the superconducting loops on a sapphire base.
And that was the problem.
It was. She found that the surface of the aluminum forms this messy, amorphous oxide layer, basically rust.
And that microscopic rust was creating the noise?
Magnetic noise.
Yeah.
It was essentially talking to the qubits and scrambling their information. So she changed the recipe.
She switched from aluminum to tantalum, and from sapphire to insulating silicon.
She did. And the result was not a small improvement.
It was huge. The lifetime of the qubit went from 0.1 milliseconds to 1.68 milliseconds.
That's more than a 10x improvement.
Incredible.
And again, a millisecond sounds like nothing to us, but to a computer that operates in nanoseconds, that's an eternity. It gives you so much more time to do your work, and she thinks she can get it to 10 or 15 milliseconds.
So if we put this all together, we have proof that error correction works. We have software making it way more efficient. We have hardware getting cleaner and more flexible.
Check, check, and check.
What does this all mean for us? For the listener?
It means the timeline has just been radically condensed. Like we said at the top, people like Xiaoyang Liu are now seriously predicting fault-tolerant computers by 2035.
That's just over 10 years from now. That's within the career span of almost everyone listening.
It is. And the applications are huge. The classic one is breaking encryption. Shor's algorithm.
The one that can factor large numbers and make most of today's internet security.
Obsolete, basically. But honestly, we'll probably have new post-quantum encryption by then. The more interesting stuff, I think, is simulation.
Simulating nature itself.
The physicist Richard Feynman famously said that nature isn't classical, damn it.
Oh.
If you want to simulate how an enzyme fixes nitrogen or design a new catalyst,
You can't do it on a supercomputer.
the problem is too complex. But a quantum computer is nature. It speaks the same language. It could simulate those molecules perfectly. That could lead to those wonder materials we're always promised. Better batteries, new drugs, more efficient solar panels.
And the article mentions stock trading, of course.
Of course. Optimization problems. Finding the most efficient route for a fleet of delivery trucks or balancing a global financial portfolio.
Yeah.
That's probably where the money will go first.
Naturally. But I love that quote from Dorit Aronov near the end. The person who came up with the threshold theorem, she just says, we've entered a new era.
And she's right.
The skepticism is just gone. Now it's an engineering race.
That really is the key takeaway. For so long, being a skeptic about quantum computing was the safe, smart bet. It was always vaporware. That vibe is gone. Now it's just about who can build the best machine the fastest.
So we finally moved from if to when, and when is looking a lot like 2035.
That's the consensus that's forming.
It's just incredible to think we're standing on the edge of this.
We really are.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. We talked about how these error-correcting codes are getting more and more complex.
Right.
But the source mentions a warning from a physicist named Barbara Turhall, and she points out a kind of paradox.
The complexity paradox, yeah, that's a very real concern.
She says that as we build these massive, intricate codes, like the ones Gidney is designing, the computer itself becomes vastly more complicated.
You're adding more wires, more lasers, more control systems.
And every single one of those new components is a new source of heat, a new source of noise, a new place for something to break.
Exactly.
So if we keep building more complex systems, just to correct the errors of the system, is there a point of diminishing returns? At what point does the correction become more resource intensive than the actual computation?
Is there a fundamental limit to how clean we can scrub a quantum state, or are we just going to be chasing our tails forever?
That is the billion-dollar question. Are we just trading a physics problem for a logistics nightmare?
A question to think about while we wait for 2035.
Indeed. Well, that's it for this deep dive into the quantum revolution. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.